save BC oil tanker ban bill from defeat. Liberals' Environmental Assessment Bill C-69 passed the Senate with 160 amendments and now returns to Commons. While the Senate's Transportation Committee recommended the upper house defeat the bill, a coalition of independent and liberal senators have cobbled together enough votes to rescue legislation to implement the government's planned ban to oil tankers along BC's northern coast. The outcome was far from certain after the committee that studied the legislation recommended against passing the Liberal plan. The committee issued a scathing report this week saying that if passed, the bill would stoke the nascent separatist movement in Western Canada and accused the government of unfairly targeting Alberta's oil patch at a time of constrained pipeline capacity and critical oil prices. The strongly worded report penned by the committee's chair, Conservative Saskatchewan Senator David Tkachuk, prompted a backlash of sorts Wednesday night from other senators who called it overly partisan. Senators rejected the committee's report by a vote of 38 to 53 with one abstention. Now, senators are expected to make amendments into the third reading phase of the legislative process before sending the bill back to the Commons for approval. The Senate also voted this evening on B-69, the government's controversial overhaul of the environmental assessment process. The Senate's Energy Committee passed more than 180 amendments to that bill that would, among other things, limit the Environment Minister's ability to interfere with the regulatory process and start the project timelines. Having passed the Senate, C-69 now returns to the House of Commons with all 180 amendments. While not explicitly written to the Liberal government's 2015 platform, then third-party leader Justin Trudeau vowed to ensure moratorium on oil tankers docked at ports along the northern BC coast while unveiling his plan for the environment and Vancouver area event in June 2015. In describing the legislation, Tkachuk said it's not, as advertised, that this is not a moratorium, and because there is no set timeline, it should be described as a ban. The Conservative Party recently launched a series of ads with the tagline, Justin Trudeau, not as advertised. In a report, Tkachuk said the legislation was motivated by a desire to protect the pristine Great Bear rainforest, but rather by electoral considerations. He said Trudeau is willing to undermine the prairie economy to court votes elsewhere. Tkachuk said Trudeau is targeting one region where the political rewards for the government of the day are few in order to please voters in other regions of Canada, regions where the government of the day has far greater potential to win seats. Our committee notes the ruling political party has historically been unable to win a significant number of seats in the region targeted by this bill, and all credible polls indicate the ruling party will be unable to win a significant number of seats for the upcoming federal election. Independent Quebec Senator Andre Pratt said that while he also opposes parts of the tanker bill and will offer other amendments at the third reading stage, he thought Tkachuk's report did a disservice to the committee's deliberations on the legislation. While many reports are produced with a degree of consensus, with contributions from members of the committee from different parties, the committee's deputy chair, independent Quebec Senator Joël Duchesne, said there was no such thing from Tkachuk. He said no to any steering committee as usual, where we were therefore unable to decide in a collegial matter about how to go about writing the report. Only priority then became to ensure that whatever report was prepared would be put before the Senate promptly so that we can all vote on it the senator told the colleagues. Therefore, I urge you to emphatically reject this 21-page report, which does a disservice to the Senate and does not justify to the diversity of opinion among 139 witnesses who appeared before us. However, when she was critical of the Kachuk report, Melville, Duchesne, and other dissenting senators did not draft a minority report to respond to the Tory pen document. Independent Manitoba Senator Mary Sinclair said the Transport Committee is clearly dysfunctional given the much bickering that was between members and its meetings in the chamber Wednesday. It's appearing to me, being here, that this committee did not function properly and did not function in a collegial manner. I therefore consider it to be a dysfunctional committee, the former judge said. The committee did not appear to be able to get along as well as in work its deliberations that caused me to concern, because now they're being asked for parties to report as members of the chamber. The dysfunction labeled promptly claims for unparliamentary language from Conservative opposition, with one senator saying the description defamed the work of the committee. Independent Quebec Senator Rosa Galvez said the mood at the Transportation Committee, of which she was a member, was extremely unpleasant under Kachuk's leadership. She said that the committee's travel to locations in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan were essentially a waste of time because dissenting voices were all but excluded from Kachuk's final report. A cost-benefit analysis of this report would be absolutely scandalous, Galvez said. Overall, I got the feeling that our work being undermined and even sabotaged rather than conducting an in-depth analysis of Bill C-48 of its weaknesses and limitations so that could suggest amendments and make observations that could be effective in improving it while we created a hostile and aggressive atmosphere that prevented the legislation from being studied in the best interests of Canadians. Galvez said her colleague, independent Alberta Senator Paula Simons, who sided with the Tories to vote down Bill C-48, a committee was harassed to vote a certain way. Kachuk defended the committee's work and the report it produced. It's not a waste of time. This was said at best, he said, of the committee's travels. He said the bill, which would ban tankers capable of carrying more than 1,200 metric tons of oil from area that stretches from northern tip of Vancouver Island to the Alaska border, is so egregiously bad that it should be stopped in its tracks. Your committee has concluded from the varied and quite possible passionate testimony put before from a broad range of witnesses who appeared in Ottawa, British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan that Bill C-48 is both decisive and discriminatory, Kachuk said. He said that the legislation, which does nothing about oil tanker traffic in eastern Canada, serves only to bolster a growing Western Canadian separatist movement. The feeling of resentment, I can tell you, is palpable, and any legislation that pours fuel on the particular fire should not be allowed to proceed, Kachuk said. He said the bill will cost all of us as it imperils the future of Alberta's oil patch and conventional oil development in Saskatchewan, two major economic drivers for the Canadian economy. If enacted, the bill would frustrate future pipeline projects like the now defunct Northern Gateway project and proposed indigenous-led Eagle Spear pipeline. Your committee strongly maintains the target of one region of Canada for economic punishment is unconstitutional and destructive for the fabric of Canadian federalism, Kachuk said.